What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my week two NCAA football power rankings. Let's get into it here. And we got dropping from the rankings, Florida State and Texas A&M. Florida State, not surprising after an 0-2 start to start the year. That is surprising. And then Texas A&M falling with a tough home loss against Notre Dame, but they are staying in the others receiving votes, along with teams like Nebraska, Boston College, obviously beating Florida State. So they're going to get that nod. Boise State in a potential game of the year week one. And then SMU. I think SMU is an interesting team to watch in the ACC. But speaking of the ACC, we got Clemson, and they're falling from 15 to 25, and that's because they just got throttled by Georgia in that second half. It was only 6-0 Georgia at the end of the first half. Then after that, well, the wheels fell off. Hopefully they can rebound this week against App State. They're a decent non-Power 5 school. Clemson should respond and get a win. 24, you have NC State. And NC State, they were struggling through three quarters, but then in the fourth scored 21 unanswered points. Thanks to Grayson McCall, he really stepped up in the fourth when they needed him the most. But if they have that same performance this week against Tennessee and what they did last week, it's going to be a long, long week for NC State. 23, we got Georgia Tech. And their preseason ranking should say 48, not 15. Missed that. My bad, guys. But they're 2-0 to start the year. Dominant win against Florida State at the buzzer. Then they beat Georgia State as well last week at home. And this team could be on a crash course for a very good season because last year, how they finished the season was great. And they're just continuing that trend here to start the 2024 season. 22, you got Iowa. Nothing surprising about last week's victory. Yeah, actually, there is 40 points. Come on, that's not an Iowa Hawkeyes team. We're thinking about 20 points is a lot for them. But this week, Iowa State, obviously the Battle of Iowa, should be a great game. Always take the under in the Iowa game because it's probably going to hit. If Iowa wins this game, it's going to be like 13 to 10, probably something ugly like that. If they don't win this game, I think there's going to be some concerns there for the Hawkeyes. And then if that's the case, it's going to be a long Big Ten season for them. 21, you got Louisville. Not much to say, just a big blowout win. They showed up, did what they had to do. Jacksonville State should be better competition, but I kind of expect the same route. 20, you got Kansas, and Kansas blowout win expected. But this week you go into Illinois, and I think that could be a very good game that people probably will overshadow just because, it's Kansas. They're kind of towards the back of the rankings. Illinois, not the best Big Ten team, but it is a road game for the Jayhawks here. A little test for them early on. I expect them to take care of business, but, don't be shocked if this game is a very close one when it's all said and done. 19, you got LSU. Fell yet again for the third straight year under Brian Kelly in the opening weekend. And they had this game and then they lost it. Then they had it and then they just couldn't figure it out in the fourth quarter. And Miller Moss just took over. Nussmeier, though, I think he's going to be okay. He should respond very good in this game against Nicholas State. Probably blow them out. And I think they get South Carolina, which will be a very interesting game to see how they're going to play that one. If they can get that win, I think they'll be right back on their feet. They do have an easier SEC schedule than most. So LSU, they still got a lot right in front of them. 18 is Kansas State. Blowout win here. Didn't really expect anything different. They do go into Tulane, which I think could be a great game. Another one of those games that might fly under the radar. Tulane might be that team, the non-Power 5 team that gets in, wins the conference championship. So maybe later in the year, if Tulane keeps this one close or they even win this one, this might be a game we look back at. 17 is Arizona. Blew out New Mexico. I'm surprised they let them score as much as they did. About 61 points is a lot, and you really can't stop that. Fife to McMillan. Obviously, career day for McMillan, setting the most receiving yards in a game. And if this offense is going to just explode like this almost every week, Arizona's going to be in some good hands the rest of the year, especially in that Big 12. Speaking of the Big 12, we got Oklahoma State, and they took care of business against a tough South Dakota State team. They ended their 29-game winning streak coming into the game, which, FCS doesn't really matter. It's still really good. Alan Bowman, Ollie Gordon, that duo is going to be the team this year, going to carry it all. But they got Arkansas at home, definitely as good or even a tougher test than that South Dakota State team. And they, have scheduled some non-cupcake games out of conference, which I'd like to see. Really makes this team, if they can win this one, really makes me believe that this Oklahoma State team is going to be really good this year. Another Oklahoma team, you got the Sooners, took care of business against Temple. Not really much to say here. Was expected. They get Houston should be a little bit more of a challenge, but I expect a big blowout there. Now 14, you get USC Trojans, and I didn't have them ranked in my preseason. I didn't think they would win this game against LSU, so I said, why even bother? But man, was I wrong. Miller Moss came through when they needed him. Obviously, didn't only threw for one touchdown, but 378 yards, only nine incompletions is a very efficient day. Woody Marks with the game-sealing touchdown at the end, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know why those two are there, the defense plays and whatever. But USC, I think this team could be really good. They definitely have already gained my attention after week one, and Lincoln Riley finally has a defense. So maybe this is the team in the Big Ten that could cause some chaos late in the year. 13 is Miami, and man, did they just throttle Florida. I was watching this game, and it never really seemed at one point that Florida was going to come back. I think it was 17-10. They were going to keep it close, and then immediately Miami went down the field and scored a touchdown. And I think kind of from that point on, the Florida fans were out of it, and the Swamp just really wasn't what it could have been if a few things went Florida's way, obviously. Cam Ward is a dog, and he's going to make this Miami team very, very good and might save Mario Cristobal's job. 12, you got Tennessee. Huge blowout, and it was more than I thought it would be, being a Tennessee fan. But this week they go into NC State, or I guess in Charlotte playing against NC State. And if Nico can play almost as good or 75% as good as he did last week, I still think they're going to win this game because Samson, limited work, only 12 attempts, but obviously three touchdowns. He's probably going to get a heavier workload this week against NC State. And I think this could be a grinded out kind of game for the Vols. And I think they should win this game, but it is a neutral site game in Carolina. So home section tends to favor towards NC State in this one. Now 11, you got Utah. Took care of business. Cam Rising, obviously great to see him back out on the field. And this offense is going to be explosive all year long. Baylor could be an interesting team this year, but it's too early to tell. But I think Utah is just going to throttle them here at home. 10, you get Notre Dame, and I'm not moving them up here. I didn't think it was really that convincing of a win, if we're going to be honest, for the Irish. It was a great win, though. I won't take that away from them in College Station week one. Normally, they don't do those kind of things, schedule a big game early in the year. And if they do, it tends to not go their way. But this time it did. They took care of business. And if you look at that remaining schedule, last week of the season they play USC, don't really see an opponent that might give them a challenge. As long as they can all stay healthy, especially Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love, this Notre Dame team might be that 5 seed when the playoff comes around. 9, you got Mizzou, took care of business against Murray State. Probably is going to do the same thing against Buffalo, but it's good to see Brady Cook still balling. And obviously the ground attack still balling too, even without Cody Schrader. 8, you got Penn State, and they proved me wrong. I will say that in week one. I thought West Virginia, I could have saw them winning, but I didn't pick them to win. I took Penn State, and I don't know what to say. This Penn State team showed up. Joel Klatt said it, that they definitely were not afraid to take some shots down the field, and that's not kind of the Penn State team we've really seen. Nicholas Singleton had a big rush over 40 yards. I think he had 7 of those his freshman year. Didn't have any last year, and he already had 1 in the first game of the season. So this Penn State team, through week one, I know it's early, is playing a lot better than they have in the recent years, especially in those big games. But once again, those big games, they got to win. James Franklin's undefeated in the last 2 years if it's not Ohio State or Michigan on the schedule. 7 is Alabama. Don't really need to talk about the Western Kentucky game and DeBoer's debut. They get USF, should be more challenging opponent. I know last year they struggled with them early, USF, but they did win that game. And I don't expect it to be the same thing this year's Alabama team is on a mission. They got some really good weapons still. Milrose officially the starter this time when they play. So I expect Bama to roll. 6, you got my Wolverines, and they AP poll didn't show them love. They lost a spot even with a good win against Fresno State. Fresno State's probably going to end up 9-3 when it's all said and done at the end of the year. The only thing you can really take out of this game, the defense obviously is still awesome, but the quarterback room, who's going to be the quarterback? Davis Warren, Alex Orji. I think it's going to be Warren at least for a half in Texas, and let's say they're down 10 or 13, they might throw Orji out there, see what he's got, because I really don't think Sharon Moore knows who the solidified starter is. I mean, Warren only 118 yards passing. I think they could have got a lot more than that. But hey, Colston Loveland, as long as he's still out there, all reliable, Michigan's going to be just fine. Five, you get Oregon, and I'm dropping them here like the AP poll did. And I just don't know what to say about this Oregon team. I thought they'd come out way better than they did. Gabriel had a spectacular game, and they only showed 24 points in this one. Yeah, I'm just as shocked as I'm sure a lot of people have. And it's no joke this week. They get Boise State. They play that same performance last week. I expect Boise State to win that game, if we're going to be totally honest, because you can do so much and play really well and only score 24 points. Things just aren't adding up there for Oregon. And, Boise State dropped what, 50 burger last week, and the running back had 6 touchdowns. So hopefully Oregon will be able to stop the run in this one, because if not, they might be dropping significantly in the rankings. At 4, you got Ohio State, destroyed Akron. Probably going to destroy Western Michigan, even though Western's a little bit better than Akron. But it's good to see this Buckeye team with a good quarterback finally. Whatever, I'm done. Next. 3, we're talking about Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, man, did they put a whooping on Furman. 76 nothing. Get Middle Tennessee this week. Should be a little bit better of a game, maybe only 50 to nothing. But Jackson Dart looks like the real deal and one of those Heisman favorites that he was voted for the preseason. At 2, you got Texas and 52 nothing against Colorado State. That is not what I was expecting. I was expecting something a little closer, maybe like 30 points, but 52 nothing is crazy. Quinn Ewers played great besides the one pick. Archie Manning even got in the game, threw a touchdown his first career. But now you're going to the big house, week 2 against Michigan, game of the week. Let's see what Texas is made of. And, as a Michigan fan, I'm a little worried here after last week's performance, just because, it's a big game. But Texas, if they're going to win a game that's this big, now's the time to do it, because coming off of last year's playoff, their success, the loss at the last second, if they want to prove some people that Texas is going to be here for the long haul, this game in the big house is the one you get. And of course, at 1 is Georgia. No one really expected them to blow out Clemson. No, if you're an SEC fan or if you know ball, yeah, you saw this coming. Clemson can't figure out the quarterback problem, and that's why Georgia walks away with a huge victory. The first half they were stifled, only scored 6 points. Kirby Smart, great at halftime adjustments, came out, scored 28 points, and it was just too much for Clemson to bear. Now you get Tennessee Tech at home, probably gonna put up 60 and blow them out. That's it for my week 2 power rankings. Check back next week to see who's in the rankings. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.